Prudent Scholars in association with Goa Headmasters Association.
Students, welcome back to chapter 4 of our textbook, and that is agriculture. So after having studied resources and development, forest and wildlife resources, water resources, today we are going to study about agriculture as a resource. What is the importance of agriculture? This shouldn't be a question anybody would ask, because we depend on agriculture for our food. So agriculture is important because it produces the food we consume. Also, it is a source of raw material for industry. Not only for industry, but also trade. We export certain surplus products produced within our country. As a result, you will see it is a primary activity, and about 2/3 of India's population directly or indirectly depend on agriculture for their survival. So what are the types of farming we have? The types of farming have undergone a great deal of change from the primitive days right up to today. So depending on our the rainfall, the soil types, the regions and the methods, the culturally acceptable methods used by various people, agriculture is divided into 3 types. One is the primitive subsistence farming, the intensive subsistence farming, and the commercial farming. As the term primitive substantial says, it is a farming where the whole family works on the farm, and this work is generally done manually. The farms are small since they are owned by the very poor people. They use traditional methods of farming. Therefore, you will see that the produce won't be much because they don't use modern methods. Yet, it is their culture to use the traditional methods of farming. As a result, the yield is not very high, and most of the yield is consumed by the family and very little is left to sell, or if it is kept for the next produce, very little is surplus within the family. The next method of farming is the intensive subsistence. You will see that this farming is carried out in places where irrigation is possible, could be a little bigger piece of land, where one can use fertilizers, pesticides on a large scale. Now why? They have also been brought under high yielding variety of seeds, mechanized agriculture, or the use of machines. That is because they need a higher produce from the land as compared to the primitive subsistence farming. When we study about intensive subsistence farming in detail, we will dwell more upon these points. This farming is also characterized by a low fallow ratio and higher use of inputs such as capital and labor per unit area of land. So therefore, in the intensive subsistence farming, it is carried out not on very large tracts of land, yet you will use all the inputs, biochemical inputs, you will use a lot of labor, yet in spite of all this, the produce will be less because the land is not very large. And the third is commercial farming. You will see that it is a capital intensive farming which demands good managerial ability. Now why managerial? We will learn, I will tell you when we learn a little more in detail about this farming. One should have technical know-how, okay? Sophisticated machinery, fertilizers, irrigation and transport facilities. So the gist of it is that this is something on a very large scale. You will use all the inputs, you will use technology, you will use machinery, you will use transport. The degree of commercialization of this kind in this kind of agriculture varies according to the regions and the quantum that they will produce. Plantation farming is a type of commercial farming. Now let us study each of these in detail. We come back to the primitive subsistence farming. Now you will see that this kind of a farming is still practiced in a few regions of India. Now it is characterized by small and scattered land holdings. So the farms are small because the farmers don't own large tracts of land. They use primitive tools like the hoe, dowel and the digging stick. I have put a picture of the hoe over here. Now you will see the hoe is just like a spade that we use in Goa, but it is narrow, elongated and is very useful or efficient in digging. Sometimes our farmers also use this hoe, if you have noticed the difference. Then they use this dowel. The dowel is like a sickle that we use here in India, in Goa, and this dowel will help them to clear the bushes, clearings, so that they can grow certain their crops, the crop types. They have got digging sticks. We use pickaxe, but they use the digging sticks because it helps them to dig. Their soil is very moist. So these are the simple tools and implements that they use in their day-to-day farming. Also, the farmers are poor and therefore they will work with their family members and community labor, where they call the members of their community to help them out in their field, and then they will eventually go and help them out in their field. They also depend on the monsoon. See, there is no irrigation facility, these people can't afford. So the monsoons, they depend on the monsoon. They also depend on the natural fertility of the soil and other environmental conditions. So the produce of this land is not much. So with whatever they get, these people have to manage. There is another term under the primitive farming only, which is known as slash and burn. We have studied this in the previous classes. However, let us recall what slash and burn farming is. In this type of agriculture, first of all, a piece of forest land is cleared. You can see in the pictures which are put, the undergrowth is just burning, right. In the second picture, you will see that the land has already burned down and the ash that is created will add to the fertility of the soil, or will be like a manure for the soil. So here you see that the land is cleared by felling the trees and burning the trunks and the branches. After the land is cleared, what happened? The crop is grown here for 2 or 3 years. Why only 2 or 3 years? Because the fertility of the soil decreases. And here too there are no modern inputs, so the farmer, in order to get produce, in order to sustain his family, he will need to shift, to move to another piece of land. So therefore this land now gets abandoned and the farmer moves to a new area and the same process is repeated. However, in the previous land which he has already left, you will see that the fertility of the soil gets replenished naturally. No fertilizers nor modern inputs are used, therefore again making the productivity low, and therefore when the productivity is very, very low, the farmer shifts to a new place, a new stretch of land. What is grown in such places? You will see that they grow paddy, which does not require much water. They grow maize, millets and vegetable crops in order to sustain their families. Now it is known by different names in various parts of the country. It is known as Jhuming in Assam, Meghalaya, Mizoram and Nagaland. If you see, all these 4 states belong to the northeast Indian states. So generally in those hilly areas where they have abundance of rainfall, the land is slopey, the land is fertile, you will see that Jhuming is or slash and burn farming, because they slash the trees and they burn the residue of the trees and they carry out their farming. So this is carried out there. You also see it is known as Pamlo in Manipur, again in the northeast, Deepa in Chhattisgarh because it is hilly, and Andaman Nicobar Islands. So there are various names, however this type of farming is carried out in these places. The next, we have intensive subsistence farming. Now, what is done in this kind of farming? You will see basically it is practiced in a place where there is high population density. That means in a region where you have a lot of population, it is the farming population, and they need to get the produce of their land for their survival, for their sustenance. They may sell the extra and they will use biochemical inputs. So, such kind of a farming carried out by the farmer is known as intensive subsistence farming. It is labor intensive for high productivity. So, you will use your inputs, you will use machinery and carry out this farming in order to get higher input. Now, you must remember that the land holdings here are not very big, and I will tell you why. They use high biochemical inputs and irrigation as mentioned to you earlier. Now, why are the land holdings here not very high? Because there is something known as the right to inheritance among the farming communities. Now, when a farmer owns a large tract of land, eventually he needs to divide it among his family, his sons or among his family members. And when you divide a big tract of land among so many members, you will see that the land holdings eventually become smaller. And in order to have mechanized farming with biochemical inputs on a small piece of land falls very expensive and difficult. It's not feasible, right? So, that is why if I am a farmer and I have a small land holding, I will use the maximum inputs I have in order to get the maximum output over a period of time. So, the right to inheritance among the farming communities and the subsequent division of land for successive generations has made these land holdings small. Therefore, it has become uneconomical and in the absence of alternative source of livelihood. So, this community depends only on agriculture for their survival. So, they need to grow various crops all throughout the year, right, and as the fertility decreases they will have their biochemical inputs. The next is commercial farming. In commercial farming, as the name suggests, it is for commerce or rather for sale, right. So, here they will use high doses of HYV seeds. We have studied about these last year in economics. They have chemical fertilizers, insecticides, pesticides for higher productivity of land. For example, we have also learned that rice is grown under the green revolution in Punjab, Haryana and West Uttar Pradesh. Plantation farming. So, plantation farming is a subset of commercial farming, is a type of commercial agriculture where a single crop is grown on a large area. You will see in the picture that you have one crop grown over a large area. You will see that the grapes are also a plantation agriculture, right. And what are the features of commercial or plantation agriculture? They cover vast tracts of land. They use capital intensive labor and generally these are migrants. So, they will have migrants, they give them the residence and these migrants work on these large tracts of land. And basically they will use all the machines. They will use their irrigation facility, they will use big machines known as combines if it is feasible. Otherwise, if it is removing of these grapes or bananas, growth of bananas, right, you need manual labor for it. That is why it is referred to as capital intensive labor. And you will see that all these, the produce of commercial farming goes into processing industries. So, the raw material, so the produce of commercial or plantation agriculture is generally for the industry. Some of the plantations like tea, which is carried out in Assam, North Bengal, coffee in Karnataka and rubber have processing factories within the farms itself. So, that the shelf life of the produce remains and is acted upon quick. Other plantation crops are sugarcane and banana. So, we have the sugar crushing industries close to the farms. So, this now requires a well developed network of transport and communication. So, it requires a well developed network. Now, see, we had spoken about transport. Why transport? Now, the raw material has to be brought from the farms to the processing units. So, and in order to make it efficient, quick and so that there is less of loss of the raw material, it needs to have efficient means of transport and communication. So, there needs to be communication between the industry and the farm, the processing industry and the farm on the produce as to when it will come, what is the quantum, etc. And also the market, you need to have transport to the market. What is the use of producing the material, having the finished product if you are not going to have transport in order to market it to various parts of the country. So, all this is a whole network of system. That is why commercial farming requires this, a well developed network of transport and communication connecting farms, industries and markets for the maximum output and produce and efficiency in the commercial method of farming. So, these were the 3 basic farming practices that we have in our country. So, depending on the region and their culture, you have these farmings carried out. It is not the same throughout the country. The next, okay. So, after having learned the farming methodology, now how do we grow? Do we grow specific crops during certain times? It is true. Crops which are grown or which require a lot of water are taken advantage of take advantage of the rain, and the farmers grow it during that time in order to avoid dry season agriculture. So, if a particular crop requires a lot of water for its growth, you will see that it is grown during the rainy season. If a crop requires less rain and maybe bright sunshine, then that is grown during some other period of time. There are some crops that require a lot of water or require a lot of heat. Those are grown during a particular period of time, and as a result in India we have studied this and divided the crops into Kharif crops, Rabi crops and Zaid. Kharif, Rabi and Zaid. Now, the Kharif crop, as you will see, and we know, and you better know this properly because you need to answer this well when you get it for the exam. These are basically monsoon crops which are planted in June. See, even in Goa we see we wait for the first rains in order to grow our rice. So, it is planted in June when the rains come and harvested might be towards the end of September, October, depending on how your produce has matured, right, what time you are going to harvest it. So, basically we say it is planted in June and harvested in October. You will see that crops grown here are rice, cotton, maize, groundnuts. We have to the extreme and we have Rabi crops. These are planted in November because they do not require the rains, yet they require the moisture that is already there in the land. After the rain, the moisture that is retained into the ground is what is required for these crops. So, they require a lot of moisture initially during their growing period, right. So, therefore, these are planted in November and harvested during the bright sunshine in the month of April, and crops like these are crops grown during this time are wheat, barley, peas and gram. And Zaid are the crops which are planted in March. So, therefore, they require heat, okay, to grow, and they are harvested in June. We can see watermelons, cucumbers, we see a lot of fruit, vegetables these days, local vegetables under the Kumeri cultivations which are grown during this period of time. They are planted in March and they are harvested around April, May, June. We still get them these days. Now, the cropping season in the table that I have placed before you, you will see that there are certain crops specific in the northern region and in the southern region. You do not need to know these, but just for a broad fair idea, you will see that Kharif crops which are grown between June and September, you will see that the northern states grow them and they are like rice, cotton, bajra, maize, jawar and tur, while the southern states also grow. Now, what grows here is rice, maize, ragi, jawar, groundnut, depending on the quantum of rain that is available. During the Rabi crops during March to October to March, you have the northern states grow wheat, gram, rapeseed, mustard and barley, while the southern states still continue growing rice, maize, ragi, groundnut and jawar. The Zaid crop in the month of March, April, May, you will see that the northern states will grow vegetables, fruits and fodder crops. However, certain southern states will grow rice, vegetables and fodder. So, rice is grown throughout if you see in the southern states, because they must be having the source of water or irrigation in order to grow that rice. What are some major crops of the country? Whenever we study about crops, rice and wheat always takes the first, second place. So, again, because that is a major produce of the country, it is a staple diet of the people, and so we need to study about rice and wheat. Now, rice, I have made a tabular column so that you can find it easy and convenient to study and remember. Now, the first crop is rice, which is a staple diet of all Indians, and the climate that is required for the growth of rice is temperature above 25 degrees Celsius. It requires high humidity, it is a kharif crop basically, and rainfall above 100 centimeters. So, therefore, regions which have rainfall above 100 centimeters will definitely grow rice, and most of the states in the country do get that much of rain. So, all the states of the country will definitely grow, but which are the regions where the produce is very much? You will see the plains of north and northeast India, north because not only the rain but also the river waters come, and the soil is very fertile. Therefore, the plains of north and northeast India. You will find the coastal region because they too get the rain, and the deltaic region, the soil is fertile, the fertility is replenished by the alluvium that is brought down by the rivers. States, of course, all the states, we have been studying this for a very long time. Now, what is the important information here? If a place does not get enough of rain, there is a network of canal irrigation which enables those states to grow rice. So, therefore, it can be grown with dense network of canal irrigation and tube wells in regions of less rainfall like Punjab, Haryana, West Uttar Pradesh and parts of West Rajasthan. And these are the same places where we had the green revolution that began some years back. Coming to the second crop, the second most important cereal crop of the country is wheat. Now, wheat requires a cool growing season and bright sunshine for ripening. Therefore, it is harvested around March, April. It requires 50 to 75 centimeters of evenly distributed rain. So, therefore, it will be grown in places which get the retreating monsoons. You will see that we have regions such as the Ganga Sutlej plains of the northwest, so Ganga Sutlej, and the black soil regions of the Deccan plateau. So, the states where wheat is grown is Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Rajasthan and parts of Madhya Pradesh, and therefore, this becomes a very important food crop of these states. The next is millets. Now, we have bajra and jowar which come under the category of millets. We also have ragi. Now, I hope you have seen bajra in the market, okay. The grains of bajra look like this, and the cobs, so to say, of bajra are like this long, while this is jowar, and you will see that this grows like this. So, this is bajra and jowar. This is ragi. We are very familiar with it because we have it, use it as nachni in our diet. This is how nachni grows, this is how ragi grows. Jowar is the third most important food crop. It is rain fed and grows in moist regions. You will see that states such as Maharashtra, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh all produce jowar. Bajra, it grows well in sandy and black shallow soils. Therefore, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Haryana produce bajra. What about ragi? It is a dry season crop, so it does not require much rain. However, it grows well in regions which have got red, black, sandy, loamy and black soil, shallow black soil. So, it does not require the roots to go quite deep into the ground. Now, ragi is very important because it is rich in iron, calcium and other micronutrients as well as roughage. It is a very important breakfast cereal. The states that grow ragi are Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Sikkim, Jharkhand, Arunachal Pradesh. So, these are the states that produce ragi. Now, just one note about millets, we see that they are known as coarse grains and they are planted because of their high nutritional value. All these three are coarse and they are grown for their high nutritional value. They have got a very high nutritional content by themselves. The next come again the next food crop, the last two important food crops. We have learned rice first, followed by wheat. Third is millets, under which comes jawar, bajra and ragi. Next is the fourth is maize and the last is pulses. Now, maize is used both as a food and a fodder crop. So, therefore, it is used also to feed the animals. It is a kharif crop, therefore grown during the rains. It requires temperatures between 21 degrees and 27 degrees. The regions where it is grown is in the old alluvial soil, so it does not require fresh replenished soil. It is quite comfortable growing in old alluvial soils. And which are the states which grow maize? You will see that Bihar grows it as a rabi crop, so a winter crop, while the others will grow it as a kharif crop, and the states where it is grown is Karnataka, Uttar Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh. So, that full region will grow maize. Now, you will see that with the use of modern inputs such as HYV seeds, fertilizers, irrigation, we have managed to increase the production of maize in the country. So, this is important. We have not remained with the old traditional methods, but improvised in the output of maize as a crop. Pulses, they are a major source of protein for vegetarian diets. So, we see that pulses require or are grown in places which require less moisture and dry climatic conditions. So, wherever there is less moisture and dry climatic conditions and there is fertility of the soil, you will have the growth of pulses like Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Maharashtra and Karnataka. So, you will have a lot of pulses which grow in these places. Now, what are some of the pulses? The examples of certain pulses, the most common ones, of course, we have got so many. You will be able to see the pulses that India grows if you go to a grocery store. You will see so many sacks of rice of different pulses, or in the supermarket you will find one whole shelf having different kinds of pulses. Now, a few examples we have put down, that is tur, urad, moong, masoor, peas and gram are some of the pulses. Now, what is important about growing pulses is that they are leguminous in nature, that is they replenish the nitrogen from the soil, from the air into the soil. So, the nitrogen in the soil gets replenished by the process of nitrogen fixing. You have already studied it in the previous classes and in your science this year. So, nitrogen fixation helps us when we grow pulses to fix nitrogen into the soil and therefore replenish the fertility of the soil. So, it is very profitable to grow pulses. Here we have the variety of pulses which are found in our country. These are just a few, there are so many more, and that is maize, butta, which we like when we go to have it nice and roasted with butter and whatever else. So, lime, so that is maize. What about other food crops grown in the country? There are some major crops grown which do not come under the category of food crops, right? That do not come under the category of food crops as grains or grain as food crops. So, they are sugarcane, oil seeds and tea. So, these are also food crops, but which are not grains, and they are sugarcane, oil seeds and tea to begin with. There are more that will follow. Now, sugarcane is a crop that can be grown both in the tropical and the subtropical region. So, there is a vast area that can support or sustain the growth of sugarcane. It grows well in hot and humid climates, so it requires a lot of rains. The temperatures between 21 and 27 degrees Celsius, and it requires rain between 75 and 100 centimeters. So, regions, and especially in India we have a lot of regions that come under this range of rain. So, it grows in a lot of places. You will see that the irrigation can be carried out in places which have low rainfall, right, and if the soil is fertile, and if you have large tracts of land to grow sugarcane, with the help of irrigation sugarcane can be grown. It is labor intensive from sowing to harvesting, because here you cannot put machines into the fields. So, it needs to be manual, therefore, it is said to be a very labor intensive crop from the sowing to the harvesting of the cane. What do you get from the sugar cane? We get sugar, we get gur or jaggery, khandsari and molasses. Khandsari is that sugar candy which we have when we have a cold and all that, and molasses which is used in industry. Which are the states? Excuse me for having written short form, students, because it would not fit in that space. Okay? So, we have states that grow sugarcane are Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, Punjab and Haryana. So many states, see, because we have tracts of land, fertility, rain and irrigational facilities, like see Punjab, Haryana has got a lot of irrigation, therefore they can grow. So, these are the states where sugarcane is grown. Next, we have oil seeds. A lot of oil seeds grow in the country. The main seeds produced within the country are groundnut, mustard, coconut, sesame, soya bean, castor, cotton, linseed and sunflower, to name a few. There are many other seeds also that are grown, and all the seeds that are grown, the oil that is extracted from them need not be edible only. They are also used as raw material in industry, right. So, some are edible oils and the others are used as raw material. Now, which are the industries that have the use of these oils? You will see the soap industry, cosmetic industry and ointments. So, when you have an ointment, the base will be some kind of an oil which will help you to apply, right, which will allow you to spread on your skin. States which grow oil seeds are Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Gujarat and Maharashtra. So, these have the growth of oil seeds. Tea. Tea is an important beverage crop which grows in the tropical and the subtropical region, just like sugar. They grow, this tea grows both in the tropical and in the subtropical regions. It requires deep, well drained, fertile soils which are rich in humus and organic matter. Therefore, you will always find tea growing on the slopes of the land, because it cannot retain water, the water should run down. So, it requires deep, well drained, fertile soils which has humus and organic matter. It also requires warm, moist, frost free climate with frequent showers for the continuous growth of tender leaves. I repeat, it requires warm, moist, frost free, so no cold, with frequent showers, that is frequent rains, in order to encourage the growth of tender leaves, because it is the tender leaves that are harvested. So, once the leaves mature a little bit, you will not get, it does not give you that much of flavor. Okay? So, therefore, the tender leaves need to be harvested, and for that continuous rain is important. It is labor intensive because it has to be plucked by hand. So, if you see on the tea cultivation, you will find ladies with baskets on their back and they pick the leaves and they just drop it into their basket. So, therefore, it is labor intensive and you require cheap labor, because on all those tea gardens which you have on those hills, imagine having so many people working, so much of labor working. So, it has to be reasonable in order to be economically feasible. So, they require cheap, skilled labor and abundant workforce. It is processed within the tea gardens, not far away from the plantation, in order to restore its freshness. And therefore, we see that tea is grown in Assam, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Meghalaya, Arunachal Pradesh and Tripura. So, you will find tea growing in these places. Coffee, coffee follows tea. So, coffee you will see is produced in Kerala, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, and it has a great demand. Now, horticultural crops, I have made it a little attractive for you because there is a hint, there are mnemonics over there. Horticultural crops are all the food crops that we will grow. India produces a lot of fruits and vegetables, both of tropical and the temperate region. So, we have a variety because we have this kind of climate. We have got the soil, various soil types, therefore, we can grow all these fruits, and India has taken advantage of the climatic conditions and therefore grown a lot of crops. And so, these horticultural crops, the first is the king of fruits, that is the mangoes, and you will see that mangoes are grown in Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh and West Bengal. Now, why did I highlight M and A for mango? Because M will stand for Maharashtra, so you get the hint that it grows in Maharashtra, and A for Andhra Pradesh. So, these are the states that this fruit grows the maximum. Next, we have oranges, and oranges grow in Nagpur and Meghalaya. So, oranges have a G, and these are the two places you can remember where they grow, where oranges grow. So, Nagpur and Meghalaya, and which place of Meghalaya? Cherrapunji, which gets the highest rainfall. Next, we have bananas which grow in Kerala, and the banana chips from Kerala are synonymous. Grows also in Mizoram, Maharashtra and Tamil Nadu, right. So, bananas, remember, Kerala. Lychee and guava grows in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. So, I have just given you a hint that U of the guava will give you the hint that it grows in Uttar Pradesh, U, and lychee, the I grows in Bihar, L-I, so B-I. So, lychee and guavas, you will see that guava grows in Uttar Pradesh and lychee in Bihar. Pineapples grow in Meghalaya. You will find that grapes grow in Andhra Pradesh. So, that A and P of grapes, I have given you a hint that AP of Andhra Pradesh, and it grows in Maharashtra. So, if you notice, we have grapes which grow in Andhra Pradesh and Maharashtra, and we also have mangoes that grow in Maharashtra and Andhra Pradesh besides other states, right. Then we have got apples, pears, apricots and walnuts which grow in Jammu Kashmir. This I am sure you know. So, Jammu Kashmir and Himachal Pradesh. The next is a set of vegetables besides the others that we have. These are the commonly used vegetables. They are peas, potato, cauliflower, carrot, brinjal, onion and tomato. Now, these I have put them in this order because I have given you a mnemonic over there, P2C2BOT. Remember this. If you remember P2C2BOT, you know what to remember. P stands for peas, potato, C2 will stand for cauliflower, cabbage, B is for brinjal, O is for onion, T for tomato. So, I think this should make your learning of horticultural crops a little simpler. With that, we finish one part of the lesson, and thank you for your attention. I hope it will make you easy to study the matter that we have already the matter that I have explained to you. I hope you have understood it. Thank you very much.